So I'm getting ready to attach the fourth row of vinyl side planking on the transom. The pieces, I've got two big pieces on each side here that are ready to go. I do the transom first, and then the side pieces overlap. They overlap so they look like this, if you can see that. Obviously that's not sanded down yet, and I got to fill in that little crack, little gap. So this is the piece that's going to go on the transom. And so I just roughed up, this is the inside part that'll go on the boat. And I just roughed it up with some 40 grit in preparation for that. So I'm going to show a little more detail about how I attach these planking pieces. Trying a different video. So this is the piece that I just sanded the backside, roughed it up a little bit, 40 grit. And then I've got pieces like this to temporarily hold it. So I'm gonna do the epoxy part. I'm not gonna show that on the video. I talked about that in other videos. And where I encapsulate the boat in the back piece and then thicken on both surfaces. And then what I'm gonna do with these pieces is pretty much all using these washers. And so I'll try to show that. I'll get it all attached except for maybe a couple washers, and I'll show that. It's not that big a deal, but and so just use a lot of these washers here, and then I put plastic between this and the washers just in case there's any epoxy that oozes out. I don't want these to be glued to this. That would be a mess. So I will come back here in a second, around a few minutes, and show that. So basically, a piece like this is 5 millimeters. Conforms very nicely to the transom. These pieces are the easiest to put on, really. And so I'll just use a bunch of washers. And so I'll show part of that here in a little bit. All right, so I have the boat encapsulated and the backside of this piece encapsulated here. And then I put thickened epoxy on, again, both of those surfaces. And I just tacked with one washer here using my composite brad nailer, again using the dark brown composite nails or brads. And so I'm going to attach most of these, and then I'll come back here in a minute. Okay, so you can see I've got most of these on, and so with the plastic up like this, I keep these washers just below the edge. That way I can peel this back and wipe that, because you can see there's a little bead there. That's really at least what I'm looking for. I like to see just a little bit of epoxy squeeze out, not a lot. And so I just push on here kind of hard and just put one in. That's usually what I do, is one. Sometimes I'll do more than that, depending. Pieces on the side tend to be a little bit thicker, and sometimes you have to coax them a little more. Yeah, so once you get these on, if you can, you always want to leave room, again, so you can wipe that top edge, because if you don't, and sometimes it's tricky, I haven't been able to do that when I've gotten real creative with the clamping to conform the curvature on these side pieces. You can't get in there to wipe it, so you end up with a little more of a mess to clean up this top edge, because the next piece that comes down, you want that edge to be clean. So it gets to be, it's kind of a pain to clean out. I use sandpaper and my Japanese saw and kind of work on the edge and stuff, so it's just really sort of tricky. But on these pieces, it's nice because I don't overlap them on the bottom, so that I can peel this up a little bit and wipe off any excess there as much as possible. So that's how that works. And in an upcoming video, I'll try to show, basically once this is dry, you just gently peel them off, and the epoxy brad is still there, which is nice, because then I clip that off with some small wire cutters, and then you end up with it flush to the surface, and it's dark brown, so when they stain, they should, in theory, disappear mostly. So that's how I do it. So this is all dry now, and I'll show you how these washers, they just peel off. I just do them by hand for the most part. For most of them, I only have one a composite nail in there, so you just peel the opposite side and it just, okay. That one broke the composite nail. Normally what they do is they just gently will peel, and then you can see that little nub. Most of them do that. So that's really what I'm looking for, is to leave that nub. So if I peel these, hopefully that's in view. Appears to be, yeah. And so I'm just peel from the opposite side, and you can see these little, these are the composite, what's left over the composite nails, and I won't do all these in the video here. And then what I do is just take these wire cutters and just trim them. You want to wear your safety glasses when you're doing this normally. So, and so it gets it close to flush, and then just a little bit of sanding them in the future will then make those so they pretty much disappear as soon as you stain. That should disappear, because I plan on staining with a darker brown. So that is how that works. So it actually works really well. And I'll just continue on here. So here's what that piece looks like now after I got all the washers off. And obviously I've got cleanup sanding to do, because there still was some that oozed out. I don't know if I can show you close up, but like right there's a close up, so you can see it. That's almost, it's hard to see even without staining. And if you notice this top edge, I was able to keep wiped pretty clean. So that's a nice square edge. That'll be ready for that next, actually the last piece now. The next piece will be the last one. And so that is what that looks like after you take all the washers off and trim what's the little nubs of the composite nails.